This is the Unit 5 review guide, the first video for ELR 5.1. Here are the questions that went with 5.1. Number 1 says, when you compress the air in a syringe, what happens to its mass, volume, and density? First thing that I need to point out is what compress is. Compress is when you take something and make it smaller or squish it. So as an example, I've got these two blocks that I've drawn on my paper. This one is the first one. I'm going to say that it has a mass of 1. And if I'm going to compress it, I'm just going to squish it down to make it a smaller size, but its mass is going to stay the same. It still has a mass of 1. So the question is asking us what's going to happen to its mass, volume, and density when we squish it. So the mass is going to stay the same. Making something take up less space isn't going to change how much mass it has. The volume, though, the definition of compressing is to make volume smaller, so volume is going to be smaller. The real question here is what's going to happen with the density. So since I made up a number, I've got a good way to, or a good start to just making up some numbers and figuring out what happens. So density is mass over volume. So I've got density equals, my mass I already said was 1, and I just made up a volume. I just said, how about 2? This box is now 2. So this box has a density of 1/2. Well, when I squished it, I had to cut the volume down. So I said, alright, mass is going to stay the same for the smaller block, staying the same on the top. But the mass I decided to cut in half. The volume I decided to cut in half. The volume was taken down to 1. 1 over 1 equals 1. So it looks like the density of the bigger block has a density, or the density of the bigger block has a density of 1/2. The density of the smaller block is 1. Bigger density on the smaller block. So if I squish it, go from this one to this one, density goes up. Question number 2. The mass units that we use in this class are grams and kilograms. For volume, we use both milliliters and centimeters cubed. And temperature, we almost always use Celsius, but Fahrenheit is another unit that we could use also.